Let me ask you something simple. Have you ever had a great idea, but your feelings told you not today? You had the knowledge, you had the tools, maybe even the time, but your emotions whispered, wait a little longer. It's not the right moment, and so you didn't act. That's the tug of war between the mind and emotion. One plans the journey, the other reacts to the weather. Now, which one should be in the driver's seat? That's the real question. See, the mind is your compass. It's built from experience, wisdom, logic, and learning. It can see the future clearly, even when the present feels uncomfortable. But emotions, they live in the now. They're loud, urgent, and often irrational. Now, don't get me wrong. Emotion isn't the enemy. Emotion is powerful. Emotion gives energy to your dreams, but unchecked emotion, that's like giving a Ferrari to a child. It's beautiful, but it'll crash. The most successful people I've ever studied learned one thing early, to respect emotion. But to follow reason, they didn't wait until they felt like doing the work. They did it anyway. And then the feelings caught up. That's the secret. See, discipline comes from the mind, not from mood. If you build your life on emotion, it'll be like building on sand. Strong when the sun's out, weak when the storms hit. But build it on thought, on principle, on vision, and it will stand when the winds howl. Most people let their emotions decide when they start, and when it gets hard, their emotions tell them to quit. So they stay in cycles, start, stop, always stuck in the loop. But you, if you learn to let the mind lead you, break that loop. You begin to do the things that matter even when you don't feel like it. And that's where growth happens. That's where success begins to take shape. So which is stronger? Well, emotion is louder, but the mind is wiser. Emotion shouts, the mind guides. Emotion reacts, the mind responds. Success favors the one who listens to the mind and uses emotion as fuel, not as the steering wheel. So I say, sharpen your thinking, strengthen your vision. Let your actions be guided by your commitment, not your condition. Use emotion to push, but never to decide, because once your mind takes command, your life begins to change. Your success becomes inevitable, and the world, it starts to respond to that steady voice of discipline, wisdom, and thought. Emotion is powerful, but it reacts to the present moment. It doesn't check your goals. It doesn't consult your vision. It doesn't ask if today is a good day to quit or keep going. Emotion simply feels what it feels and demands a reaction. It's like the weather. It can be sunny one moment and stormy the next. You wake up with clarity, but one bad comment, one mistake, one unexpected problem, and suddenly your emotional sky is dark. And that's what emotion does. It pulls you into the now. It magnifies the moment. If you feel discouraged, it tells you that you'll always feel that way. If you feel tired, it tells you to stop, even if you're close to a breakthrough. It's not that emotion is wrong. It's that it's immediate asterisk. It only knows now, not tomorrow, not your dreams, not the years you've worked, just now. And if you let emotion lead, you'll always chase comfort. You'll always retreat when things get uncomfortable. You'll say, I'll do it when I feel ready. But readiness rarely comes wrapped in comfort. It comes through persistence, through progress, through discipline. Emotion wants relief, but success demands resilience. Emotion says, take the easy path. The mind says, take the right path. And in that moment, when you choose which voice to follow, you shape your future, because emotion isn't a compass, it's an alarm system. It warns you, it alerts you, it makes you aware, but it should never be the one steering the ship. It can cry, scream, whisper, beg, but the decision must belong to the part of you that remembers the goal. The part of you that doesn't live for just this moment, but for what this moment will create. You can feel like quitting and still keep going. You can feel afraid and still step forward. You can feel unmotivated and still do the work. That is power, not because the emotion is gone, but because it's in its proper place. When you recognize that emotion is temporary, you gain strength. When you stop obeying it blindly, you become free. When you feel everything and still act on what matters, you become unstoppable. Emotion is powerful, but it is not always truthful. It speaks from fear, from fatigue, from frustration. It speaks from pain. And yet, if you pause, breathe, and wait just long enough, you'll find a deeper voice, the voice of your reason, the voice of your purpose, and that voice doesn't change with the wind. It doesn't fall apart in the face of pressure. It doesn't need to feel like it. It just knows what must be done. Let your emotions be heard, but not obeyed. Let them move you, but not rule you. Let them add color to your life, but never be the ones holding the brush. Because when you lead with discipline and let emotion follow, you move beyond this moment and into the future you were born to build. The mind is built on logic, wisdom, and vision. It sees beyond the now. It's the architect of your future. It takes the raw material of your experiences and turns them into structure, meaning, and direction. While emotion is loud in the moment, the mind is calm and consistent. It doesn't rush, it calculates, it looks ahead. It doesn't ask how you feel right now. It asks where you want to be 5 years from now. The mind remembers your goals when the moment tries to distract you. It holds the blueprint while the storm tries to shake the foundation. It doesn't fold under pressure. It holds the line when everything else wants to fall apart. The mind uses reason to cut through the noise. It steps back and sees patterns where emotion only sees chaos. It says, wait, think, breathe. What matters most here? It chooses action based on outcome, not on impulse. Wisdom lives in the mind, not just information, not just knowledge, but wisdom. The kind of wisdom that comes from experience, from learning, from failure, from reflection. It's what lets you step into the next moment stronger than the last. And vision is the crown of the mind. It's your ability to see what doesn't exist yet, to hold an image of a better future and walk toward it even when the path is unclear. That's the gift of the mind, to see past the fog, to believe in what can be, even when what is feels heavy. While emotions want comfort now, the mind sees value later. It says, let's endure this pain because it leads to growth. It says, let's stay the course because the reward is waiting. It says, let's not trade long-term joy for short-term ease. The mind gives you power over the present, not by ignoring it, but by seeing it for what it is. A stepping stone, not the whole journey. It allows you to suffer today if it means winning tomorrow. It helps you rise above temptation because it remembers your principles. Your mind is the gatekeeper of your habits, the guardian of your standards. It holds the line when your emotions scream for escape. It says, we're not here to feel better. We're here to become better. That's the difference. Emotion looks for relief. The mind looks for results. Emotion wants to run. The mind wants to grow. And when you choose to listen to the mind, when you allow it to guide your actions, even when your heart wants out, that's when transformation begins. Because your feelings change daily, but your vision doesn't have to. Your moods may rise and fall, but your mission remains steady. Every great breakthrough started in the mind. Every victory was first imagined, then pursued. The mind gives you that ability to think, to plan, to hold the bigger picture when life tries to shrink your focus. And that's what makes it so powerful. It leads not with noise, but with direction. Not with panic, but with purpose. Not with impulse, but with intention. Let your mind be your guide. Let it anchor you when the world sways. Let it remind you that your future is bigger than your feelings. Because the mind sees beyond the now, and it's leading you to the life you were meant to build. Success comes from doing what must be done, not what feels easy. It doesn't come from waiting until the mood is right. It doesn't come from seeking comfort or chasing convenience. It comes from action, consistent, deliberate, sometimes uncomfortable action. The truth is, easy rarely leads to extraordinary. Easy is seductive. It promises rest, but it robs you of progress. It feels good now, but it costs you later. What's easy is often what keeps people stuck. Growth lives on the other side of resistance. Success lives in the territory of discipline. It asks what needs to be done today, and not what do I feel like doing. The ones who rise, the ones who lead, the ones who build legacies, they do what's necessary, even when it's boring, even when it's painful, even when no one's watching. They wake up tired, but they show up anyway. They face fear, but they move forward anyway. They feel doubt, but they keep building anyway, because they understand something most people miss, that success doesn't wait for motivation. Motivation is a bonus, but discipline is the foundation, and discipline asks only one thing: do what matters, not what feels good, not what's popular, not what's fast. What matters? Sometimes that means waking up early. Sometimes it means staying up late. Sometimes it means hearing no again and again before you get to yes. Sometimes it means working while others rest, studying while others scroll, sacrificing now to reap later. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just making that one call, finishing that one task, sticking to that one habit, day after day, until momentum takes hold. Success is not about talent alone. It's not about luck. It's not about waiting for the stars to align. It's about showing up, doing the work, and not running when it gets tough. And yes, there will be days you want to quit. There will be days when your feelings scream louder than your vision. But those are the days that count the most. Those are the days that define who you are becoming. Anyone can keep going when it's easy. It's what you do when it's hard that sets you apart. It's what you choose when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when you're unsure. That's what determines your future. The easy road leads to regret. The hard road builds character, and character is what holds your success when life tests your strength. So ask yourself, what must be done today? What matters more than your mood? What decision would your future self thank you for? Do that, even if it's small, even if no one sees, because success isn't about moments. It's about patterns. It's about habits. It's about stacking the hard choices one after another until your life reflects your effort. Easy won't get you there, but doing what must be done will. And when you learn to act beyond your feelings, when you learn to keep your promises to yourself, that's when everything begins to change. Emotion can fuel your journey, but the mind must steer it, because passion is powerful, but without direction, it burns out. It lights the fire, yes, but fire alone can't build a future. You need a map, you need control, you need vision. Emotion can give you energy, it can wake you up early, it can push you through pain, it can make you believe in something bigger than yourself. But it can also pull you off track. It can confuse urgency with wisdom. It can lead you into battles you don't need to fight. It can push you to quit when the road gets steep. That's why the mind must take the wheel. It knows the difference between feeling and fact. It knows the value of patience. It knows that every mountain isn't meant to be climbed today. The mind takes all that energy emotion gives and gives it purpose. It says, here's where we're going. It says, hold that passion, but point it in the right direction. Without that guidance, you run in circles. You work hard but go nowhere. It's the mind that builds the plan. The mind that watches the clock. The mind that remembers why you started when your emotions scream to stop. The greatest journeys in life aren't just powered by fire. They're steered by thought. They're led by principle. They're kept on course by intention. Emotion might get you out of bed, but the mind decides what you do next. Do you scroll through distractions, or do you focus on what matters? Do you let the highs carry you too far, or the lows bury you too deep? Or do you let the mind hold steady like the captain of a ship guiding you through the storm? Because storms will come, and when they do, emotion will react. It will panic. It will rise and fall like waves, but the mind must stay firm. It must see through the clouds. It must trust the course. Emotion gives you your why. It reminds you who you're doing this for, what drives you. What moves you, that's important. But your how, that's the mind's job. The mind chooses the strategy. The mind adjusts when the plan breaks. The mind doesn't crumble because the heart feels heavy. When emotion says, I can't do this, the mind answers, yes, you can, and here's how. When emotion says, this hurts too much, the mind says, we expected this, keep going. Emotion alone will have you chasing moments, but the mind builds movements. Emotion seeks pleasure now. The mind invests in reward later. That balance, that partnership between passion and purpose is where true power lives. You don't need to silence your emotions. You just need to lead them. Let them ride with you. Let them give you momentum. But never hand them the wheel, because the road to success is filled with detours. And your feelings may try to turn every time it gets hard. But your mind, if trained, if trusted, it will steer you true. So burn with passion, feel it in your bones. Let your heart beat loud, but let your mind lead. Let it focus, let it aim, let it choose the path while emotion powers the stride. Discipline is born in the mind, not in feelings. It doesn't ask for permission from your emotions. It doesn't wait for motivation to arrive. It doesn't care if you feel ready, it acts. Because it's trained to act, your feelings will rise and fall. Some mornings you'll wake up inspired. Other days you'll feel heavy, tired, or unsure. But discipline shows up no matter what the weather inside you looks like. Because discipline is a decision. It's a commitment made by the mind. A promise that says, I will do what needs to be done, even when I don't feel like it. And that promise gets stronger each time you keep it. You see, feelings are fragile. They change with one conversation, one comment, one bad day. They are influenced by comfort, by doubt, by pressure. But the mind, when it's trained, is resilient. Discipline begins the moment you stop negotiating with your emotions. It begins when you replace, I don't feel like it, with it's time to begin. It grows when you choose structure over chaos, effort over excuse, purpose over pleasure. It's easy to act when you're excited, but discipline is about what you do when excitement fades. It's about consistency. It's about showing up again and again, even when no one claps, even when no one sees. You don't build discipline through mood. You build it through repetition, through waking up early when your body wants to sleep in, through doing the hard work when your feelings whisper, take it easy. Discipline is not natural, it's built. It's carved into your character by the choices you make every day, small choices, quiet moments, unseen efforts, and over time, those moments become who you are. You begin to trust yourself, you begin to walk differently. Because you know, you won't abandon your mission, even when it's hard. That's the difference between discipline and emotion. Emotion pushes you until resistance shows up. Discipline pushes through resistance. Emotion is unpredictable. Discipline is unwavering. The mind creates a system. It says, here's what matters. Here's when we do it. Here's why it must be done. And it doesn't ask for a second opinion. It follows through, not because it's easy, but because it's essential. Discipline teaches you to delay gratification, to push pleasure to the side in favor of progress, to choose the workout over the couch, the study session over the screen, the long-term reward over the short-term escape. It isn't always pretty. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it's lonely, but it's always powerful. Because discipline puts your life in your hands. It says, you are in control. not your mood, not your fear, not your fatigue. It reminds you that greatness is not found in comfort zones. It's earned through persistence. So if you want to build discipline, don't wait for better feelings. Build a stronger mind, create routines, create standards, create reasons bigger than your excuses. And remember, you don't need to feel like doing it. You just need to decide it's worth doing. Then do it, and repeat, until discipline becomes not just what you do, but who you are. Acting from emotion creates inconsistency. Acting from thought creates momentum. Because emotion changes by the hour. It shifts with the weather, with words, with wins and losses. What feels right now might feel wrong an hour later. And if you build your life on that shifting ground, you'll never gain traction. One day you feel inspired, so you start. The next day you feel tired, so you stop. One moment you believe, the next you doubt. That's the cycle emotion creates when it's in charge. It pulls you into a loop of starting and stopping, rising and falling, never quite finishing. But thought is steady. It doesn't get blown around by every mood. It plants its feet in purpose. It looks ahead. It remembers the bigger picture, even when the present moment feels heavy. Acting from thought means you don't let how you feel today decide what you build for tomorrow. You let logic lead, you let your values lead, you let your mission lead. That's how momentum is built. Not from bursts of excitement, but from steady effort. Not from waiting until everything feels right, but from doing the right thing again and again, no matter how you feel. Momentum is the reward for consistency, and consistency only happens when thought takes over emotion, because emotion might get you started, but only thought keeps you going. Emotion gives you the spark, but thought builds the engine. When you act from thought, you move with direction. You don't chase every feeling. You don't abandon your path because it got difficult. You stay focused. You stay grounded. And each small step adds up. That's momentum. It's invisible at first. It doesn't feel like much. But over time, the actions compound, the habits stack. The effort becomes progress. And before long, you're moving with force. Not because you always felt like it, but because you acted with intention. You chose to keep going when your feelings told you to quit. You chose to follow your plan instead of your impulse. You chose to build something that lasts, rather than chase something that fades. When you act from thought, you lead your life, you don't react to it. You create structure, you create patterns, you create a rhythm that pulls you forward, and that rhythm becomes hard to break. That's the power of momentum. It starts slow, but once it builds, it becomes your advantage. Because now, discipline is easier. Decisions become simpler. You don't have to argue with yourself every day. You've already decided. But if emotion is your guide, every day is a battle. Every choice is a negotiation. Should I work today? Should I rest? Should I push forward or pull back? That constant back and forth drains your energy. It keeps you stuck. Thought clears the path. It says, here's what matters. Do that. It says, ignore the noise, follow the plan. It says you're not here to feel your way forward, you're here to build. So if you want momentum, lead with thought, decide once and act often. Let your emotions come and go, but don't let them run the show. Because when thought leads and emotion follows, you move with purpose, you move with power, and eventually you move without hesitation. Strong emotions without control lead to self-sabotage. They feel intense. They feel urgent. They feel like truth in the moment. But feelings are not always facts. When you let strong emotions take over without direction, you start reacting instead of responding. You say things you don't mean. You make choices you regret. You burn bridges that took years to build. And afterward, all that's left is regret and confusion. Emotion is energy, raw, powerful energy. It can move mountains or destroy everything in its path. Without control, it becomes chaos. It becomes the thing that pushes you away from your goals, while convincing you that it's right. You can feel angry and speak truth, or you can feel angry and burn everything to the ground. You can feel fear and take calculated steps, or you can let fear paralyze you and talk yourself out of your potential. Strong emotion is not the problem. The problem is when it goes unchecked, when it gets the final word, when it becomes the driver of your decisions. Without control, emotion convinces you to quit too soon, to walk away when you should hold steady, to lash out when you should pause, to chase relief instead of resolution. Think of how many times success was close but someone walked away because their emotions lied to them. They said, "This will never work. This is too hard. I'm not good enough," and they listened. And they gave up. Emotion left unchecked can become the voice of defeat inside your mind. It can whisper self-doubt in moments of pressure. It can magnify every small mistake until you believe you're failing. It doesn't care about logic. It doesn't remember how far you've come. It only feels what it feels, right now. But you are not your emotions. You are the one who can rise above them. You are the one who can feel everything and still choose what matters. That's control, not suppression, not ignoring what you feel, but understanding that you are bigger than that wave. Control is the anchor in emotional storms. It's what allows you to pause instead of explode, to think before acting, to breathe before speaking. It's what lets you see clearly, even when your emotions try to blur the truth. And with control, emotion becomes useful. Anger becomes fuel. Fear becomes focus. Sadness becomes a lesson. Joy becomes momentum. But without it, you become your own obstacle. You start fights you never needed to start. You destroy routines you worked hard to build. You isolate yourself when you most need connection. You procrastinate when it's time to move. You panic when it's time to lead. That's self-sabotage. It's not that you don't want success. It's that your emotions are untrained, and every time they flare up, they pull you off track. But the good news, control can be built through awareness, through practice, through discipline. It begins with recognizing the emotion without becoming the emotion, feeling it but not feeding it, letting it pass like a storm while you remain grounded. Because when you learn to guide your emotions, not obey them, you reclaim your power, you protect your progress, and you move through life not just with fire, but with focus. Successful people respect emotion but follow reason. They don't pretend emotions don't exist. They feel them fully. Just like everyone else, they feel fear, they feel doubt, they feel pressure, frustration, even exhaustion. But they don't make decisions based on those feelings. They let emotions inform them, not control them, because emotion is a signal, not a command. It can tell you something's important. It can warn you something's off, but it can't always be trusted to guide you. Reason is the compass. It sees beyond the moment. It keeps the mission in focus when emotions try to pull you in different directions. Where emotion says, act now, reason says, think first. Successful people know that reacting in emotion can cost them everything. A single angry decision, a careless word, a panicked retreat. They know these moments can undo years of progress, so they choose to pause, to breathe, to wait until the mind catches up. They don't silence their feelings. They acknowledge them. They take time to understand them. But when it comes to choices, they follow logic. They follow the plan. They follow what aligns with long-term goals, not short-term comfort. Emotion says, this is too hard. Reason says, hard is part of growth. Emotion says, you're not good enough. Reason says, keep showing up. You're becoming better. Emotion says, give up. Reason says, stay the course. It's not that they don't feel the storm. It's that they don't let the storm steer the ship. They keep their hand on the wheel, eyes on the destination, feet grounded in discipline. That's the secret. Emotion will fluctuate. It always does. Some days you feel like a warrior. Other days you feel like hiding. But if every decision is based on how you feel, you'll never reach the mountaintop. Successful people train their minds to lead. They've built the muscle of thinking before reacting. They've practiced patience. They've learned how to filter feelings through purpose. They know when to push and when to rest. They know when an emotion needs attention and when it needs to be ignored. They don't let a bad mood ruin a good plan. They don't let fear stop forward motion. That's why they win, not because they never break down, not because they're always confident, but because they built the ability to act through emotion, not under it. They choose progress over comfort, wisdom over impulse, direction over distraction. They may cry, but they keep going. They may worry, but they don't retreat. They may feel heavy, but they don't collapse. They listen to their heart, but they move with their head. Success doesn't come from denying your emotions. It comes from learning how to carry them, without letting them carry you away. It comes from honoring your feelings, without handing them the keys. It comes from respecting emotion, but following reason. Because in the long game of life, emotion brings color, but reason brings clarity. And with clarity comes progress. With progress comes power. And with power guided by wisdom, success becomes inevitable. Build your life on principles, not moods, because moods are temporary. They come and go like the weather. They shift with stress, sleep, environment, and emotion. They're unstable, they're unpredictable, but principles are the foundation. They don't change with how you feel. They don't bend under pressure. They stay solid when everything else shakes. If your life is built on how you feel today, then you'll keep changing directions. You'll keep guessing yourself. You'll take action on good days and disappear on the hard ones. But if you build on principles, you become steady. You wake up with a purpose, not just a feeling. You move forward even when the mood tries to hold you back. Principles are what remind you who you are when emotion clouds your mind. They're the rules you set when you're strong, to guide you when you're weak. A mood might say, skip the workout, but a principle says health is non-negotiable. A mood might say you don't feel like working today, but a principle says show up anyway. A mood might say quit, it's too hard, but a principle says you don't quit on your purpose. That's what separates the committed from the inconsistent. The ones who live by principle stay on course when it's tough. They don't need to feel motivated every day. They've already made the decision. And they don't remake it based on mood. Living by principle builds trust with yourself. You become someone who keeps promises, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard, and that consistency becomes your power. It becomes your reputation. It becomes your identity. Moods will tempt you. They'll tell you to take shortcuts, to escape discomfort, to postpone progress. But principles hold you to a higher standard. They say, this is who you said you are. Act like it. When life is uncertain, principles guide your steps. When emotions rise, principles hold you steady. When distractions scream, principles bring you back to focus. You don't have to feel great to live a great life. You just have to do the right thing often enough. You just have to stay true to what you believe, longer than the feeling lasts. A life built on mood is chaotic. One day you're inspired, the next you're lost, but a life built on principle is unshakable. It's not ruled by how the day feels. It's ruled by who you've decided to be. Make your principles clear. Write them down. Live by them. Let them become your compass. Let them speak louder than your fear. Let them act stronger than your doubt. Let them push you when your energy fades. Let them lead when your mind feels clouded. Because feelings will pass, but principles endure. And when your life is anchored in something deeper than mood, you won't just react to life, you'll shape it. You'll stop chasing emotion and start choosing purpose. You'll stop drifting and start directing, and over time, your choices will build the life you were meant to live, not because every day felt right, but because every day you lived by what was right. When the mind leads and emotion follows, success becomes sustainable. Because the mind sees the long road, it plans, it prepares, it stays focused on what matters most. It doesn't get swept away by temporary highs or short-term lows. It makes decisions based on direction, not distraction. When the mind is in charge, your path stays clear. You're not constantly pulled off course by how you feel. You're not stopping and starting, doubting and hesitating. You move forward with consistency. And consistency is what creates real progress. Emotion on its own is fire. It can fuel your journey. It can bring intensity. It can inspire you to begin, but it can't carry you the whole way. It burns hot, then fades. It rises in waves and crashes just as quickly, but when emotion follows the mind, it becomes aligned with purpose. It adds energy to intention. It becomes support, not sabotage. Success becomes sustainable when your actions are rooted in thought. When your effort isn't dependent on your mood, when you keep going not because it feels good, but because it's the right thing to do, the mind knows when to rest. It knows when to push. It knows when to pivot and when to persist. It makes choices that protect your future, even when the present feels uncomfortable. When the mind leads, your habits become stable. You don't rely on motivation. You don't need external validation. You move because you've committed. You've built systems that support your vision. You've created routines that hold you steady when life gets shaky. That's the difference. A life led by emotion constantly changes course. A life led by the mind builds something that lasts. Because it doesn't quit at the first obstacle. It adapts, it learns, it keeps going. Emotion says it's too hard. The mind says it's hard, but it's worth it. Emotion says take the easy way. The mind says stay with the process. Emotion says you're not seeing results. The mind says stay patient. They're coming. When emotion follows the mind, it becomes a tool, not a trap. It gives passion to your logic. It gives heart to your discipline. It gives warmth to your wisdom. This balance is where sustainability lives, not in extreme effort for a few days, but in steady, focused action over months, years, and beyond. Sustainable success isn't loud. It's not always dramatic. It's often quiet, steady, and deeply intentional. It's built in the small daily choices the mind makes even when the heart is uncertain. Let your mind chart the course. Let it define your values, your routines, your goals. Then let emotion bring the fire. Let it give life to your mission. Let it inspire creativity, connection, and courage, but never let it lead. Because when the mind leads and emotion follows, you gain control. You gain clarity, you gain momentum that doesn't fade when the mood does. That's how you create something that lasts. That's how you build a life not just of success, but of stability, purpose, and peace. So remember this, let your mind lead with vision. Let your heart support with passion, and let your life be guided not by how you feel in a moment, but by what you've chosen to become over a lifetime. Because when your mind stays clear, and your emotions fall in line with purpose, you don't just chase success, you sustain it. You live it, and you build something that nothing and no one can shake.